How's it going? Today we're going to talk about winter time, the cool season in Arizona, the frost, and how you should treat your plants and what to expect from your plants during that season. I'm coming to you from Tucson in the southwest in Arizona, and a lot of our plants are warm season growers. And as a consequence, during the cool season, those plants should be starting to slow down their growth. And so what they do physiologically is that they start to shunt their resources, particularly water, into the trunk of the plant, into the roots, away from the periphery where the meristematic growth is. That's where all the new growth occurs. And there's a really important reason why they do that. So the new growth of a plant is going to look a lot more vibrant than older growth. And when a plant slows down growing, it'll start to look duller. A lot of plants look a little duller in the winter, even if they're not dormant, even if they don't drop their leaves. And the reason for that is they're trying to shunt the moisture away from the periphery, which is more exposed to cold weather. And the reason for that is that cells that are full of water exposed to the cold are more likely to blow up, just like a soda can if you throw it in the freezer. And that's what frost damage is when those cells expand and blow up and are damaged by the cold. So plants, in order to manage that damage, will distribute their moisture away from the cold at the periphery of the plant and into the trunk and the roots, like I said before. So this is what a lot of plants do in the wintertime. And some plants will just even drop their leaves and become deciduous. And those plants, deciduous plants, tend to be more cold hardy, although there's exceptions to that rule. So in order to help the plant along with this, you want to water the plants less. That doesn't mean to stop watering your plants, but you shouldn't have your irrigation just set to the same program as you had in the summertime. In general, it's also cooler, so you don't really need to be watering as much as you did in the summertime. We're talking about established plants, by the way. New plants obviously need a little bit more water, because their root systems have not expanded outward yet. But in general, you want to water less often. And so, definitely decrease the frequency of your water. Water less often. Still water deeply. Some plants may not need much water at all in the wintertime. Some cacti and succulents, for example, if we don't get any rain, you might have to water them once a month. Remember that succulents, especially when they're dormant, which they won't tell you, they don't drop their leaves or whatever. But if a cactus or a succulent is a summer grower and winter dormant, they're more likely to rot if you overwater them during their dormancy. They used to tell you, they being the experts, would tell you not to fertilize in the winter time because it'll cause new growth. This is not necessarily true if you're feeding organically, and we always tell people to feed organically. Synthetic fertilizers are high in nitrogen usually, and can force a plant to grow when it's not ready to grow. So those you shouldn't use those anyway, but don't use them in the winter time. They will definitely cause frost damage. If your soil is depleted and you didn't feed in the growing season, it's still okay to feed organic fertilizers to your soil in the wintertime, because you're feeding the soil, not the plant. The plant will take up nutrients when it's ready to, but with organic feeding, you're feeding the soil. It's not going to force the plant to grow when it's not ready. One thing that's been happening in recent years, as we've had the last few winters, we've seen the warmest winters on record, and it's tricked plants into thinking that it's not winter. And some plants that used to be kind of marginal, like they didn't necessarily usually get frost damage in our region, are seeing frost damage, and at temperatures that we didn't think of them as being susceptible to damage at. And the reason for that is because the warmer temperatures have caused plants to be growing out of season. That means that meristematic growth is active, those cells are turgid, and the cold comes and you get frost damage because the plants aren't prepared. So if you're wondering, you thought this plant was hardy enough for your area and then it got frost damage in the last couple of years, that's why, because it's been warmer. And we're still going to get the frost, at least so far. We're still getting our frost in like January and February these days. So we're seeing damage because December would have been very warm and the plant's still actively growing. Now, in our region, we do have plants that are active growing in the wintertime. Your wildflowers, which take advantage of the cool season rain and the more agreeable temperatures of wintertime, will grow actively in winter. So that's going to be your Mexican poppies and your lupin and plants like that. What we call the wildflowers that we plant in autumn and grow through the cool season to be blooming in spring. They are fine with the frost because they have evolved to be growing in the cool season. So you don't have to cover most of your wildflowers. They're going to be fine. And we do have some native plants in our region that have some genetic history to the west of us because Southern California and the Mojave Desert, they get a lot of their rain in the wintertime. And so winter rain ecologies have winter growing plants. And so wolfberries, which we have many native wolfberries here, are active winter growers. So they're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about them just because they're actively growing in the wintertime. Cleveland sage is a native of Southern California and is hardy enough for our region. They don't suffer frost damage in our region. And it's an active winter growing plant. So not all plants are going to fit into what I've described because they evolved in a slightly different situation. If you have some plants that are from, let's say, Sonora, like elephant trees, and they are frost tender, but they drop their leaves in the winter, like a lot of bursaras, the elephant trees, you can take them inside and leave them inside for the winter because they're not photosynthesizing. If their leaves are dropped, they're not really spending a lot of energy growing. And so they don't need the sun as much. Remember, the sun is harvested through the green leaves of the plant. So if it doesn't have any leaves, it's not really photosynthesizing. And it's warmer inside your house, of course, or in your garage. So you can store those kinds of plants in the garage for the cool season if you need to, or at least during the time where we're going to have frost. Lastly, in our region, we have a cool season that we can grow a lot of veggies and herbs. And so for us, we grow our greens, our cole crops, our root crops like carrots and radishes and stuff. And then there's some cool season annual herbs, dill, parsley, cilantro, lovage, those kinds of things are active winter growers, and they are also fine with the frost. You don't need to cover most of those things because they like the cooler weather better. And so yeah, don't worry about it. In fact, the frost sometimes makes some of those things like cabbages taste better. Hope this helps. I can't cover everything in a video like this, but if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Spade.